We've said it a lot on the podcast that your music is the last thing that matters. Yes, once someone has jumped through all the hoops to finally hear your song, the music is the only thing that matters. But it's a long road to get to that point, and you need to lead them along that path. Which is why in this episode, we're going to talk about the other stuff you need to have ready when you release your next single or album. So let's get to it.
You're listening
to the CD Baby
CD Baby
DIY
Musician
Podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to episode number 321 of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast. My name is Kevin Bruner. Joining me is Chris Robley, and today we'll be talking about everything you need after the music. So once you have that track done, finished, finalized, mastered, and ready to go, all the things you need to get it out to the world successfully. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I have a plug, which is it doubles as a plug for my own music and for a cool service CD Baby's partnered with.
Perfect. That's why we're here.
Yeah, so I had this somewhat old song now. I put it out 10 months ago. Didn't do much with it at the time because I was busy. And so then CD Baby is partnering with this company called Groover. I was like, I'll test this thing out. So I did. I put the song through their service. It's basically anyone who's used Submit Hub. It's a more international and I would say friendlier version of Submit Hub. And I had great results. I had about 40% of the playlists I pitched to put it on a playlist or played it on their radio station. So I was pretty pleased, which I will pat myself on the back for having a good pitch and a good song, and then pat Groover on the back for having a really good network of curators that they've built up. And I would also say this about them. Even the rejections were super encouraging. Like one person was like, I love your song. This is so great. The finger picking's amazing. The songwriting is so deep. Voice is just really engaging. Unfortunately, the song's too mellow for my playlist. And I was like, oh, if every rejection came like that, I would just be on top of the world.
So Groover, the best rejection you'll ever get.
Yeah, seriously. Like I was like, these are the nicest no's I've ever heard in my life. But all that to lead to the final plug of this plug, which is we have a coupon you can use to get 15% off your first campaign with Groover. It's Groover CD Baby. And then you basically can set whatever budget you have. You know, if you just want to pitch to a few curators, it's very, very cheap. If you want to pitch to hundreds and hundreds, it'll cost you more, obviously, but you set the budget and then that'll get you 15% off whatever you decide to do.
Yeah, I have yet to try it. I'm going to. It looks very cool. And you've been raving about it. I watched the video that you put up on YouTube about it, and I'm excited. I think it's something we haven't seen anything new like this in a while that we've endorsed. You and I have tried a lot of these services over the years, and a lot of them have gone by the wayside at this point. But
yeah,
it's interesting to see this one bubbling up and making some improvements on maybe some of the past options that were out there.
Yeah, well, not to turn this entire into a Groover intro, but I think they're based in Paris. They've got offices in the US, but they have a huge international roster of curators too. So pretty diverse genres and stuff. So yeah, try it out.
Yeah. And it's groover.com?
It's groover.co. Yeah, you leave the M off the end.
Who's got time for the M anyway?
Nah, that's how you know they're really cool, because they left a letter off of there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, check that out. And don't forget to use that coupon code to get 15% off. Yeah. So
how things with you?
It's going all right. It looks like I'm recording this in the middle of the night. It is daytime here in Portland. Somebody flipped the switch and we went from summer that went all the way through October in a crazy hot October here to suddenly it is like the dead of winter.
It's finally Portland, Oregon.
It's raining like crazy. It's dark and it's really cold. Unseasonably cold. I'm tired of hearing the word unseasonably.
Well, and I have the flip side of unseasonable. It's beautiful and warm here. It's November in Maine, which should feel like winter already, and it's like summer.
Yeah. Everything's upside down, Chris. Everything's upside down. No, things are going good. Been doing some recording and writing and collaborating with artists and working on my own stuff with Small Town Poets. So yeah, I'm planning on hunkering down for November and December and doing a lot of tracking. So that's my plan
Cool.
for the upcoming months. So all right. In this episode, like we said, we're going to be talking a lot about everything you need after the music. And this is a question we get a lot. And I think this has come up even more so now that people are dropping singles right and left, because it's funny because I get people saying, I have got a song. Oh, I still need I still need album art. I'm like, well, what world what services are you using where there's not art with every track?
Well, it's like we're reinventing the wheel every time we put out a single song.
Yes. So yeah, we're going to talk through some of those things, and it's a good reminder. I think there'll be some things that artists often forget, because it is one of those weird processes. Like the creative process has so many different phases, like the conceptualization of an idea that you get all excited about, then kind of muddling through, turning it into the final product, which has its ups and downs, and then all the loose ends at the end, like mixing and mastering, that can kind of be a drain on your inspiration, and you're just like running out of energy and just want it to be done. And then it's that point where you're like, well, now I need all these other things in order to release this and release it correctly and in a way that's going to help my music career. So that's what we're going to talk about, because it is challenging and hard, because it is draining for a lot of artists, the creative process. And it's one of those things that I love. And I have to remind myself when I'm in it that, hey, this is just, you got to push through. You gotta stay strong and not start just taking shortcuts to get it done.
Yeah. Well, I think whenever you and I cover some topic similar to this, it's usually done in a list fashion, but I feel like the list or the checklist works for this type of thing because, like you said, like we're fatigued from creating the music, and then so there's this exhaustion, which then leads to this like rushing to get it out thing. So like mentally, I'm sure many of us will do many of these things, but hardly any of us will do all of them, just because we forget about them. Things slip through the cracks. So this is kind of an episode to bring it all together.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that conversation in just a moment. But before that, I want to remind you that we do have listener calls and emails coming up after the discussion. And if you'd like to weigh in on a topic in this episode or ask a question, anything that we've talked about in previous episodes, you can do so. You can call our listener line at 360-524-2209, or you can email us at podcast@cdbabypodcast.com. And you might just make it on the show. So yes, let's get into it. All right, Chris, where are we starting off?
Well, so
everything but the music.
Yeah, so there's some nitty-gritty, nuts and bolts type stuff, and then there's some really big picture stuff. And I thought we could start with a few of the big picture, high-level things, just because they tend to inform everything else in some way. So the first thing you need is a plan and a goal and a budget. So like, what are you trying to achieve? Because you can't achieve everything with this release. Is this about acquiring new fans? Is it about selling as much merch as possible? Is it about, I don't know, making a mark on TikTok or something? There's no correct answer, but you got to determine your priority. And then how are you going to plot your time, your timeline, and how you spend money and your effort to achieve that goal. And like I said, like, I think this should be among the first things that you do, because then you'll know later, is this a waste of my time? Is this helping me achieve that priority objective? And like an example I had would be, you could say, hey, I'm willing to do these things and I'm not willing to do these things. So yes, I will do 30 days of cover songs on TikTok, and these will be cover songs that are influential on this new album or whatever. And this will be a way in which I'll create content that might draw some people in and get them to my album. Like, that's perfectly fine. On the other hand, you might be like, I will never do covers, and that's fine too. You just have to know early what you're willing to do and willing to not do.
Although the latter answer is just wrong.
Is incorrect. Right.
Yes.
I don't
But
want to
you
say
can-
there's a right or wrong, but you're wrong.
People can be wrong. If there weren't wrong people, there wouldn't be right people.
Oh, good point.
Actually, the idea of a goal, it's something that I bring up quite often, because I think as artists, this is probably one of the best things you can stop and do some real assessment with every release and when the music's ready, because oftentimes our goal is just to be famous. I just want to be famous. I just want to be
Can I just
making a
start there?
full-time living. I want to be the Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Coldplay level. That's all. That's
all I
my
want.
goal. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not very actionable. So where I think this is important is thinking like, okay, with this release, what will help me get to the next spot I want to be, the next level, or what are the things that will really be important to advance my career right now? I was just having this conversation with somebody, and for them, I said, right now, the most important thing for you is to build your email list. But for some people, it might be, you know what? I've got decent following on social. I got a decent following on, I got a decent email list, but my followers on the platforms are kind of weak compared to everything else. It's like, okay, well, with this release, you need to craft a plan and put your efforts in a way, line them up in a way that drive that metric. And so thinking about what will help you with this release most, and how can you orient your promotion and the way people get to the music, engage with the music around that activity, because usually we're just taking stabs in the dark and very unfocused. But then when you think about, okay, this is what's going to help me right now, that will be the thing that you can really just kind of go towards, and it'll help focus your creativity.
I'm laughing because I wish I could say that the more experienced artists get and the bigger their fan base grows, the better they get at setting achievable goals, and also the better they would get, ideally, at plotting out a realistic timeline. But it doesn't ever seem to work. We're just as idiotic as we were when we had put out anything. It's like I'll get calls from friends who I love their music. They've put out a dozen albums, and they'll be like, so I'm going to do this national campaign, press, everything, and I need the album to come out next month. I'm like, whoa, what? How far are you into your planning? And oh, I'm at the beginning of it. You can't put out an album in a month that you're just looking for publicists now. Are you an idiot? You've done this 12 times. What's wrong with, we all have amnesia.
Yeah, well, we won't name any names, but Chris and I get emails from managers of prominent artists all the time with that same request. I need to get this live in 2 weeks. I'm like, what?
Why?
What are you doing? You know better. Stop it.
Yeah, I think the tension between your deadline and your objectives, you just got to be realistic about it, because I guess it's also not incorrect to say you need the album to come out in 2 weeks. But if that's the case, realize what you're taking off the table for your options.
Yeah. That's why I think, starting with once the music's done, like everything but the music, what's your goal and objective? Is it to get more shows? Okay, well, let's think about how you can use this release to get more shows. Is it to build a following online? Well, let's think about how you can use this release to accomplish that, because there's lots of different things you can do. And most of the time, even when we're being more intentional, a lot of times we're still taking like sort of a carpet bombing approach to just a little here, a little there, and feeling like, well, I got some results, but it didn't feel like I accomplished anything with this release. So I think that's figuring out what those goals are, like what will help you most with this release, and be as specific as possible and as actionable as possible. Like, what should your fans be doing besides, is it just pushing the play button? Is it following you on a certain platform? Is it getting email lists? Is it getting better shows? There's different strategies around all that.
And then the last thing I'd say on this topic is if your objective is clearly defined, and let's say it is just getting them to press the play button, that's perfectly fine. The next question is, how do I get them to do that? What's worth their time to do that? So that kind of gets into the promo realm, which we'll talk a little bit about later, I think. But
Yeah.
So to address some of the nitty gritty stuff you're going to need. So we've assumed in this that you have your album or your single mastered, but there's also something you have to do with that mastered audio, which is to get it into different resolutions, potentially different file formats if your mastering engineer didn't deliver them that way. So you want to get a 16-bit WAV file, you want to get a 24-bit WAV file, but you also may need and probably should downgrade it, compress it into some kind of higher resolution MP3. And then I would put all those into well-organized folders on either Dropbox or Google Drive, something like that. And then go a step further and make it easy for yourself to share music in a kind of unlisted private way. So that could be SoundCloud, could be YouTube unlisted videos. Kevin, I know you spoke yesterday at a conference that was hosted by, what's that tool again?
Beta,
Beta,
byta.com.
right.
Yeah.
So they kind of facilitate this as well as sort of before it's out, but you want to share it in the most professional way. So that's the next thing on the list. Get your files in order.
Yeah, I do this with every release. So here's a little bit more detail about what Chris just said. This is so important because you don't want to be in a situation where like somebody, a press person says, oh, I need the MP3 version. You're like, oh crap, all I have is the high res wave and they want the MP3. Now I got to go make that. And you just make a mess. It takes long. So just take an hour. Well, first you can ask your mastering engineer to export it, and all the MP3 conversion is probably going to be better and as clean as possible. Some of the ones that you can do online or some of the software may not be as good, but make a folder. I also put the artwork in multiple sizes, the high res, super high res, for distribution and for situations where they say they need a really high res file. Then I put it in like 1,000 by 1,000 and 500 by 500. And usually that covers all the bases based on, what people might be asking for. So you make that folder, then you're ready to go. So when opportunity comes up, you just send a link. And like you said, figure out like the private sharing, how you want to do that. Because the thing that's weird, I guess, when you start promoting music is that you'll get somebody that wants an MP3 file. You'll want someone that has they'll want a hosted WAV file. You'll want somebody that'll want the extremely high res artwork, and then somebody that wants a really low res image. And so just having that already is useful.
Yeah, and one other thing I usually throw into those folders, I do a similar thing as you, and I make those folders specific to the resolution and file format. So there'll be the 24-bit WAV album, the 16-bit album, but I will also put the lyrics in there, and I suggest you do two versions of that as well. One would be a kind of nicer looking like PDF kind of downloadable file that is presented in a very particular way for readers, like people who are going to listen to your music, basically lyrics for fans. But then I would also have a Google, a Google Doc with your lyrics formatted in the way that you will eventually need to copy and paste into platforms like Musicsmatch, who syncs up your lyrics on Spotify and all these different platforms. A lot of times I get asked like, hey, can I get the lyrics? And it is a pain when I haven't done this work up front. And then I'm like, oh, I don't even know where that file is anymore. I guess I should just type out my lyrics again. And now I'm spending 3 minutes that, I could have saved that time by just doing it all up front and sending them the link.
Yeah. And the last thing I put in that folder, because I do exactly what you just said. But the other thing I put in there is a couple variations of whatever the artist image I want to go along with that album. So it's all there ready to go. And where this is useful, because, you may have your stuff strewn about on your desktop or all over your computer. But if you do this into Google Drive, if you need somebody to help you, you've got some stuff happening, or in my case, I end up doing a lot of this. And if I'm like someone from the band's like, hey, I need to grab a photo, it's like the one that they need and the one that they don't even have to worry about making decisions. It's like the ones that are already formatted for press and a couple options that we've already agreed on are all in that folder. And so it just becomes the go-to easy tool for, promote when all these opportunities pop up.
Yeah. Well, so in that last section, we did just sort of address the next two things on the list, but we could just say a little bit more about having good photos, like band photos, artist photos, pictures of you. They should be high res. You don't want something that, only exists as a 400 by 400 picture that needs to then be blown up.
I hope people aren't doing that anymore.
I think you'd be surprised.
Probably so.
And then, yeah, you want them in multiple kind of orientations, a sort of landscape, a vertical version, just all the options you're going to need. And the same thing goes for, what was I going to say? Oh, we also need album art, like we mentioned. And a lot of different ways exist to make those now. If you don't hire a designer, there's Canva, which is super powerful. There's Photoshop Elements. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's
the mobile app. There's Design Pickle, which is a service we've probably talked about a lot, where it's pretty affordable to get a professional designer to, start something from scratch or work from a mock-up that you've made. And when you have that, like Kevin said, just get them in a bunch of dimensions. What you will ideally send to CD Baby is 3,000 by 3,000 pixels for the album cover.
Yeah, which is a huge file. So that's kind of like your starting point for the artwork, 3,000 by 3,000. The other thing I do when I'm thinking about a release, and at this point, I get the artwork done. And if I've used a designer, like a designer that's, maybe it cost a little bit more than a free service or, a service like Design Pickle, what I'll do is absolutely get all the layered files from them, like the Photoshop files if they've made the artwork. But I will have somebody or myself, I'll do it, create a lot of variations or things from the artwork that can enhance the website, that can enhance social headers and things like that. So it's nice, especially if you have a bigger release, to be able to change all that out at the time leading up to the release, because it feels special and helpful to, like, when you update profile images, for whatever reason, like Facebook, when you update your profile image, everyone sees that.
Everyone knows. They send it out.
One thing, yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing they see. It's like, wow, I got more engagement off updating my profile image than that interesting article I posted or whatever. But anyway, those kind of things, just thinking about that. And in the process, it makes it so much easier if you just have the designer go, oh, you know what? Can you make this album art in a vertical format and some other, like a banner format and some variations once you've decided on it? It may cost a little bit more if you're using a designer, but it's worth it to get it while they're in there doing the work, and being able to roll that out everywhere to support the release is very helpful.
Yeah. And I would even say go do like an audit of the most current dimensions of all the different platforms, avatars and header banner type images and stuff, because they do change frequently. But the other thing that you'll notice is that depending on the device you're on, the screen size, how you're scrolling through something, different things kind of are on screen or off screen. So like a YouTube channel, what do they call it? A channel header image or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a really specific way you need to put any text, because in a lot of displays, the way you might put it on a Facebook banner, that text will be invisible on YouTube. So you just got to, just do a quick pass through and make sure what you're doing will actually look good on a bunch of different devices.
Yeah. And a good image, we mentioned a good artist image. It's too easy to take a good photo these days. So a crappy photo is just not acceptable. Your iPhone, if you've got an iPhone or know somebody with an iPhone, has a better camera in it than most people have had, than all the cameras that I had growing up. So there's plenty of great Instagram and TikTok accounts that tell you how to take good photos. And it's so easy and pretty much free. And a lot of it just comes down to making sure that you frame the picture well and you have good lighting. So just go take a bunch of photos, narrow it down to a couple of good ones, and make sure you have those ready to go. Um, Especially for press, it's important that you have some that have clean backgrounds, especially if you're thinking about printed media. There's still opportunities for printed media, whether it's magazines or local newspapers, Entertainment Weekly type newspapers that most cities have. And when you have that newsprint, they always want something that has a cleaner background, um, high contrast, typically, just because it's easier to print. So having a couple options is good.
Yeah. This next thing we could discuss is something you might want to determine even before you do album design for your cover artwork or take pictures. But it's basically the idea of just coming up with a sort of brand or style guideline system. And anyone who follows me on Instagram or like watches my music videos knows that I'm the worst at sticking to any particular aesthetic. So I'm not particularly good at setting this and sticking to it. But, you know, it's good to have a general idea of your vibe, and then there's wiggle room. You can defy that when you want. But basically what I'm talking about is, what's your overall mood as an artist? What colors are you going to be drawing from? Is there like a visual palette? Do you want your images and your videos to seem grainy, or should they seem very like glossy and pristine? Is it light? Is it dark? Are like really loud neon colors okay? Or should everything feel sort of understated, muted? What fonts and what font combinations will you use? There's a lot that goes into design, and I think the more you can determine up front, the more work you'll save yourself later in like just playing around. You'll sort of have a jumping off point.
Yeah, and depending on the size of your release, like how much effort you're putting behind it, it may be something where you need to spend a lot of time on this. It may be something where you're just dropping a couple tracks to keep engagement going between bigger releases. It may not be as much effort that you need to put behind that, but I think it is important. I think with every album, I like to address that. I like, okay, I usually get the album art design and try to key off of that for everything, both the merch. And it doesn't mean everything has to be matchy, but you're just trying to have a theme. I think it feels more cohesive, and you'll see obviously major label artists doing this all the time. And of course they have deep pockets, lots of resources, and it's a lot of work, but I think it helps signal to your fans that something new is happening when they see this kind of fresh design happening across all platforms that you're and consistent and cohesive.
Well, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of the music, but I think Taylor Swift and her team are brilliant at this, like defining eras in her career, album to album. Like there's the trashy 80s fun vibe. And then for the next album, it's, sequined black and white, high contrast. It's supposed to be a little more elegant. But the next album, it's all Technicolor and super loud colors. And then we get into the folk understated country vibe. So yeah, she just has very distinct aesthetic guidelines for every release, and I think we should all model ourselves after Taylor Swift.
I mean, that's my life's goal. I just want to be like Taylor. Yeah, I just brought up her website, and yes, I mean, I knew it'd be very brand cohesive, but it very much reflects the art in the new album, and there's multiple editions that have very similar vibe. Yeah.
Well, I also think this is an area that can be really fun to dive into, because with our music, we're making like kind of a musical universe. We have a world we're building from the particular songs we're stringing together and whatever our latest sound is. So this is just the visual equivalent. It's like, what world do you want to make when someone is looking at your stuff as opposed to listening?
Yeah, I mean, and for me, I always have like when we're writing and recording music, for whatever reason, I always have colors coming to mind and a vibe that to me really connects to some visuals in my brain that I start thinking about. And yeah, I tend to try and make that flow into the art and the branding around the release.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sort of building a world and then inviting people into it, the next sort of big picture thing on our list is having a story and giving your audience or your ideal audience a reason to connect to your music. And so your story. We talk a lot about story, so I don't know how much we need to go into it here, but sort of what is important, what's grabby, what's connective about whatever you have to say about your latest release. And it should plant a seed of curiosity for the person to want to learn more or to actually listen. And then I think it also has to build some kind of affinity between you and that person. So it's like, not so much what can you tell them that's interesting about yourself, but what can you say about yourself that will feel relatable to that person? Something about their identity has to be like, ooh, this is for me. So, it's a tall order, but it can be fun to dig into this as well.
Yeah. I think this is also a key thing that ties to those goals. It's like you got a goal. Now you need a story and a reason to connect to the music and drive that curiosity, especially for that specific action you want them to take. Ultimately, we want them listening to our music, but like I said, there may be some other goals that will help you grow your career and your music as a business. And connecting that, it doesn't start with I was born here.
No. Well, I do think we should say, like, what I mean by this goes a lot further than just have a short bio and have
Yeah.
a long bio. And what do you say in your press release? It's really that thing we often try to remind artists is like everything you put out is a continuation of your story. It's like another sentence or another chapter in your story. So you can do some really long brainstorming and have a massive list of concepts and ideas and think of every possible angle into either your own life or your music that you think is interesting. And then over the next year or two or whatever your pacing is between bigger releases, slowly tell that story. It doesn't have to all vomit out at once.
Yes, exactly. What's up next?
Oh, next is back to some really easy little nuts and bolts so we can go quickly, but you're going to need a UPC barcode for your release. This isn't hard. At CD Baby, we actually provide it for free for your album or for your single. So don't stress. Just make sure when you're signing up, you get your barcode and your ISRCs, which are track identifier codes, which we also provide for free. If you happen to be kind of re-releasing a song that's already been out as a single, maybe you're putting it on an album, just make sure you keep your ISRC the same on the new album, as long as it's truly like the same recording of that song. And then another thing that we'll ask for at CD Baby, so you have to do it, but I think it's a good practice in general, is there used to be this thing in press releases called Run If You Like, RIYL, which is just a list of artists you sound like. So come up with 3 to 5 people that were influential on you. And I think it can be it probably should be a mix of like household names that everyone knows. They could be classic artists, as well as some like really trending, hip current people, as long as they do actually sound like you.
Yeah. Don't overthink this. Like it's not, there's no, I guess you could say there are some wrong answers if it's misleading. I mean, for a while, it's CD Baby because we ask this when you sign up. I remember when I was doing sync licensing for CD Baby, I would do searches and about 50,000 bands said they sound like Coldplay. And I'm like, they don't all sound like Coldplay. Because that was when like, especially, Coldplay was exploding and or U2 is another one that people will be like, oh, we sound like, no, you don't sound like U2. But I do think like what you said, Chris, it's a good practice of like a couple that are bigger that are probably more known. And then maybe a couple that like, especially for the music journalist nerd that like, ooh, they just name checked a band that I thought only I knew about.
Yeah.
that gets them.
That
all
is
excited.
exactly the effect that you want to create with these. That's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, I think this is also a very important practice with every release because sometimes we have these old go-tos. In fact, I had to do this with our band finally because there's our albums from like our classic era when we were on a label that got compared to like Counting Crows, REM.
I was just going to say,
Blossom.
we can't keep saying we sound like REM. All the people writing about music now, they don't even know who REM is.
How dare they? But then you realize, yeah, like you're saying that we're not stuck in that era and we've progressed as musicians. So now I use bands like Death Cab for Cutie, and because that has been a band that I think that I tend to think about what band would be cool if we were on tour with. Like it'd be a great match musically and complement each other, and like so that's one that I think of for us now. And then so it's a good practice with each release because your sound changes, and also it's an opportunity for you to draw connections to maybe some subgenres that you identify with and that you're trying to be a part of. But it also helps your promotion activity because when you start thinking about those connections, it not only helps you talk about the music, but you can see, well, what are these bands doing? How are they reaching audiences? Am I doing things that seem in line with how they're going after the market, or am I doing something totally different? And sometimes you need to go your own way, but it's a good way to see like where are the opportunities, what are the playlists that are featuring these artists, what are the ways other people are describing their music. Go check that out. And the last thing I'd say on the UPC and ISRC codes, the one thing that artists a lot of times come to us and freak out about in the mastering process is I don't have those for my mastering engineer to embed in the files. It doesn't matter. We don't use what they embed in the files. So we use what you enter into the website. And if we're providing that for you, that's what we use. So don't worry about that. If they do, it's fine. It may be helpful in other places, but if they didn't, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Well, so the next section of this list is basically like you've got your music, you've got your vibe, you've got your story, you've got a goal, you've got all this sort of high level stuff, aesthetic stuff. Where do you park it all? Where do you put it? And what do you do to get people engaging with it? So step one is you need a website. Even if this is your first release and you don't have much to talk about in your career, you need a website because the constant churn of social platforms over the decades has proven that like even the hottest, even TikTok one day will go away or we'll care about it less than we do now, or
maybe sooner than later.
Yeah. Or the, what is it? The FCC will close it down next week. So have a website, and this is a place that's your home base, and it should be your home base kind of forever. Like, again, don't put all your eggs into one platform. If you use a platform super well and you build an audience there, get those people back to your website. When they're on your website, you also need to have a way to capture their contact information. So have an email list or an SMS list or both, whatever feels more appropriate for your demographic. And then I already mentioned a social app, but be active on at least one social app, and then try your best to get the people off that app on your website.
Yeah. Every release, it's good to go back and assess all your web properties. I'm working with an artist, and I noticed that they had Linktree on Instagram, but they had Koji on TikTok, and they both had different links to different things.
It wasn't me, was it?
No. But looking at going, hey, let's what's going on here? We got to get these things funneling the same place. And right now, a key objective for them is building an email list. And I said that should be an option in all of these because they have a decent social presence and engagement. I'm like, your problem is you need to start converting these fans to contact information that you own and start funneling people to your website and things like that. So every release is a good one. It's like just a reminder to go, where am I linking to everybody to? Is it consistent? Especially now, because oftentimes we go, hey, the link's in the bio. And sometimes we forgot we didn't change the link from the
previous campaign.
Yeah, from the previous campaign where we were linking to one specific thing, and that thing that we're saying to link to in the bio is no longer available. So yeah, it's always good to assess that and really think about owning. How do I, at the end of the day, own my relationship with the fans?
One thing I think we overthink sometimes is the link tree, the link in bio tool. Like, oh, it's got to have links to all the different platforms where my music is. It should have a YouTube link. It should have this. Well, guess what? That's your website. Just send them to your damn website, which could have a page that functions like a Linktree type service with all the most relevant stuff at the top, easily clickable. That's fine. But like, don't stress too much. Just send them to your website.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody knows that music is available on any platform these days. It's like if they know you're an artist and you tell them that your music is available on all the platforms, they're probably going to just open whatever app they use and search you before they go click the link in the bio, then click another link. It's fine if you have it there, but I think assessing those and being like, what that to me is, and with this artist I'm working with was like, what are the immediate goals right now? Well, let's make sure that those links and how people are being directed line up with that. And so that we're building in the right direction.
Yeah, just have two more things to say about this section. There's two things you want on your website, and they're both more difficult things to pull off. The first is a reason to go to your website from social platforms. So what do they call this? A lead magnet, a lead capture device, something that you can only get if the person goes to your site and it feels important or cool or special enough to actually interrupt their day and to go do the damn thing. So, that's again a tall order, but work hard on that because it will be worth it if you have a successful lead magnet. And that lead is just a marketing term for a contact information, like an email address. So have that, and then also have at least one good video. And we've been advising people against spending all your time and money on an official music video. It doesn't need to be that. It could just be a good live video, something that captures what you do. It could be a one-take performance. Do that. That'll help you with booking. But just some kind of video content that is done well. And I think if you have that linked to your music and like a short bio on your site, that's enough to get started.
Yeah, video's great because it just gives life to a static web presence. So yeah, always having a good performance video, and we should probably do. I know we've done how to power up your music, power up your video. What was the name of the episode we did?
Power up your music videos, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was. We could probably do a part 2 where we get down into more of the nuts and bolts of like pulling off cool videos, because there are some strategies and things that you can do just with how you use the camera. And again, like the phones these days have so many great options that if you know how to use them, you can just do some amazing things.
Hey, as a total aside, we're leaving the checklist for a sec. So my phone, I have a not the newest iPhone. It won't shoot video in portrait mode, but it will. I noticed it when I do FaceTime calls, it puts me in portrait mode as video. And I'm like, what the hell, Apple? If you can force my FaceTime to shoot in portrait mode, why can't the camera do it? It's clearly doing it for FaceTime. Anyways.
You know what? There's options. I forget. It's like that cinematic mode is what you need to use.
I don't know. Do I have that option? And let me
I think it was. I've got an iPhone 13, and I think that might have been the first one that had cinematic mode. It might be the iOS. You just have to update. But I know it has to do with the lenses as well. So it may, yeah. We need to do like a whole like video. What would you call it? I don't know.
Video geekery. That'll be an episode.
Video hacks with your phone to make your videos look total pro.
We should do that episode, and you and I will love it every minute of it, like all the little tiny things, and everyone
else will be like,
everyone will unsubscribe. No, we should do that. It sounds fun.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of tips and tricks. And when I was just in London and Lisbon for CD Baby, but when I was in London, I had some time, and I was just having a lot of fun trying different things with photo tricks that I had been learning that are just super easy to do with your phone. And so, yeah, there's lots of options.
Well, so we talked about if you get attention from your fans, where to send them. But also there's another category of getting attention, which is, I call it PR, but I don't mean that in the most literal sense. It's basically, how are you going to get people to pay attention to you from the industry? And so if you're a first time artist who's just putting out music, this might be just an attempt to connect with people in your local scene, local bloggers, journalists for your local newspapers or new arts weeklies, things like that. If you've put out music before, then maybe it's time to actually do official publicity, hire a publicist who'll do the PR for you, or just, make a big effort on your own to do sort of DIY outreach. I mentioned Groover at the beginning of the show. They kind of make this easy in terms of reaching playlisters. And then there's always advertising, which is different from PR, but essentially it's a way of getting your message out at scale. So investigate those options.
Yeah, and with the release, we haven't really hit on it on this because we were just talking about video, but having some video content as well, even if you're thinking about the Canvas videos for Spotify, for ads, video performs much better. Start with the hook. You don't need to do the whole intro and people just swipe on by. But some short
it's my
video.
art, man. It's my art.
Nobody has time for art anymore, Chris. So yeah, just thinking about and with video in that session that we did, Power Up Your Music Videos, we really highlighted that video, you should really think visuals. There is a whole spectrum of visuals when thinking of video, from official music video that's high quality, high produced, probably very expensive, to just taking some cool imagery and looping it and something that catches people's eye and that brings them into the music. So having some of those pieces available is incredibly useful. You can make Canvas videos with just the artwork, the album art. Our partnership with Rotor Videos, they have an amazing tool that you can just drop in the artwork, and they have templates that make it look cool and make a looping video. You can even put some messaging on it. So those things should be a part of the process as well.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue to the last section, which is there's a lot of sort of shortcuts for this stuff. You mentioned Rotor, which is a service that'll help you make video content, full form, full length video content, ads, like you said. There's also a company called Bandzoogle that gives you these really good looking templates for musician websites. So it's not like you have to start from scratch and know a bunch of coding. You basically just use this service to make a really good looking website that has everything you need. We mentioned Groover. Groover is a great way to pitch to playlisters, influencers, even label contacts, publishers. They've got a whole bunch of industry players. And then Lalo is a way to, when you have a new release, to kind of drop that message over multiple places: SMS, DMs, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, email. And they do it in this kind of visual way that looks really exciting and is intuitive to use. At CD Baby, we have a tool called Here Now, which is a smart link builder. It's anytime you release music through us, it's automatically built for you. You can make some customizations, but it's basically, you can preview what it looks like before you pay for it. We also have a sister company called Foundy, which is like a really sort of professional, super robust version of a smart link, where you've got a lot more retargeting options. There's built-in pixels. It has all the bells and whistles you'll ever need. So you can check that out. And then the last thing I'll say is we have show.co at CD Baby, which is a suite of marketing tools. One is pre-save, Spotify follow campaign. There's a really cool way to share, instead of sharing a link to your video on YouTube, you would put that video on a show.co page, remove all the clutter that YouTube puts in your face, all the recommended videos and stuff, put all the attention on your video, and then you can actually have it serve up these little things that will call to actions, basically, that help you build your social following. So yeah, those are a bunch of tools that we are partnered with to help you go further.
Yeah. And I will say it's important to highlight that we just listed out through this episode a whole lot of things that could be perceived as to-do items or just things that need to be updated. And that in of itself will not drive success. The strategy around each of these things is going to be different for each artist, depending on your goals and the things that you're trying to accomplish with your release. But these are some of the things that are useful tools and options and updates that are important to think about with each release. But just updating your websites and stuff like that is not going to drive success unless you have like some goals and build a strategy and focus your efforts and get creative around how you're positioning your music. I did a virtual session yesterday, and I was talking about successfully releasing your music, and I was talking about how we're in a music economy that requires people to push the play button, meaning you need people listening to your music. They just can't buy a CD and throw it somewhere, and you got your money, but they don't care about the music. They have to enjoy the music. And it seems like getting people to push that play button should be really easy, but oftentimes we approach it in a very non-creative way. We're creative people, and we're just like, go listen to my music, go listen to my music. And so it requires some creativity, some strategy, and drawing people in with a compelling story. And that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. It's a good point. And now I feel really deflated. I thought if I just checked some items off the list, I would be famous.
Well, you will, Chris.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, if there's something on the list that you feel like we forgot, something that you're like, this isn't always something that I need to take care of with every release, or if you have a comment or a question, we'd love to hear from you. You can call our listener line at 360-524-2209, or you can email us at podcast@cdbabypodcast.com. And unless there's anything else, Chris, let's jump into an email.
Let's do it.
All right. Hi, Kevin and Chris. I've loved your show for years. Thanks for all you do. The Halloween show was especially entertaining. I'm glad it was entertaining. I enjoyed making that one. I think this is a quick question.
I hope they loved all my sounds.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. I think this is a quick question. When pitching a song to Spotify before it's released, how important is the add a description field? Spotify asked to tell us about the process of creating this song and to explain any plans to promote it. Is this something that Spotify employees are actually looking at? Is an algorithm searching this for some magic password that will get my song in front of more people? Thanks, Josh. And his band name is Crash Cadet.
I love the idea of a magic password. Like, I don't know if he meant keyword, but like an actual password, like swordfish trombones. Oh, let's let him in.
Yeah. That is funny. So the quick answer is we don't know, but there are some things that I do know that make me think about the importance of filling this out. If we pitch something directly, like we have a team of people through CD Baby Stages. If you're not familiar with CD Baby Stages, it's our label services program. Check out cdbaby.com/stages. And through that, we pitch directly. So it sort of bypasses that pitching tool. So we'll select some releases and we will pitch directly to editors. In that pitching process, they absolutely want to know about the plans for promoting the release and anything special or interesting about it. So what you see in the Spotify pitching tool seems based on what they already had labels and label service departments doing in a different way. And so to me, I look at that and go, okay, this is something that ultimately they want, but is there a strategy around like keywords or being wild and crazy with your description or what? Because that is something that they look at, like, I know with the different platforms. So for example, we'll pitch to Spotify, we'll pitch to Amazon. Well, when we pitch to Amazon, they don't want to hear about how you're doing this big campaign to drive all your fans to Spotify. They want to know, are you doing anything interesting that maybe gets people talking to Alexa to go find the release? So those kind of things come into play at the direct pitching level. With this, I'm not sure what makes things bubble up on the radar of an editor based on just filling out the Spotify for Artists form. There has to be some sort of automated system looking at metrics. At minimum, I would assume it gets sorted by, like, if an artist has past success, that somehow that gets prioritized over an artist that's new that doesn't have any history of success. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know is a good answer to that question, but I will say what my template is every time I use that little blurb function. I say what the song's about, in a half a sentence or so. It's like, I can't be long-winded, but what the song's about, who I worked with, if it's someone I can do some name dropping. So, an engineer or producer that's worked with some cool bands, what I plan to do to get people to Spotify, and if there's money involved, like with an ad budget. And what's the last thing? Any similar sounds like artists or genre or instrumentation keywords, because I do assume that they can pull that, if they're building genre or instrumentation playlists. So however you can cram all that in.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And you want to be as brief as possible and as creative as possible, because to me, I think it's fine to kind of go clickbaity with this. Because not start making up stuff, but thinking about, like, how can I say something sensational really short that makes someone.
So basically your pitch starts with 7 reasons you suck more than you think your friends think you do, or something like that.
Wait till you hear number 6. No, there was one, I can't remember. I probably saved it somewhere. It was when we did our version of Carol of the Bells. I said something about, like, if Radiohead and Queen got together and recorded this and blah, blah, blah. I was just trying to be really ridiculous. But it also, if that intrigued them and they listened to it, they'd be like, oh yeah, I got that. That makes sense.
That's a surefire advertising technique too. Like, even with music, it's like, is this the best prog rock song of the 21st century? And then prog rock fans are going to click on it and be like, no, that song sucks. But at least you got them to unmute and listen. So that, like, it's that sort of confrontational controversy that you're seeking.
Yeah. Prog rock fans are so smug anyway. All right.
Yeah, just the comments are just filled with no,
yes, no. Yeah, no, this is not. All right. Well, thank you for that email. I've actually had several questions about that lately, that exact same thing. So I think it was a well-timed question. And hopefully that gives you some strategies around it that might be helpful. All right, let's go to our call. Here we go right now.
Hey guys, love the podcast. You've taken my calls in the past, and I truly appreciate it every time. Always looking forward to your next episode. My name is Brian King. I'm from a band called Reality Suite, based out of New Jersey. We're a female-fronted band. And so basically my question is, I guess it has a lot to do with marketing. Now, so my thing is, I would say about 70% of our fan base is male. And I'm looking for different methods of trying to catch the eye of a female audience. Because we have a female singer who is very easy on the eyes. She's a phenomenal singer, great songwriter, and so on. But guys notice her first, and I'm assuming that's why we have a much larger male audience. Now, I'm doing certain things right now, such as Facebook ads that are targeting specifically women in our area, and that's at the very beginning stages. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how we can not necessarily change our image or anything, but basically steer our marketing towards women. Actually, my next question would be, is it worth it? Male fans do spend a lot of money. They do buy a lot of merch with us. So I would say 9.5 out of 10 people that have purchased things from us online have been men. So, basically we're looking to sell more tickets locally to shows and hopefully gain fans for the long term. Anyway, looking forward to your answer. And again, my name is Brian from the band Reality Suite. That's Suite. And talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for the call, Brian.
This kept ringing in my head as he was talking. It's ladies' night at Reality Suites next concert. 2 for 1, drink special, free sweatshirts.
When I got this call, first I messaged an artist friend of mine who is a woman and said, "Hey, is this going to be controversial? I mean, is this? I think it's the way he posed the question is well thought out." And she actually said, "Actually, I have the same question myself," because feeling like that her audience leans more towards men than she feels like it should. And so how do you reach that other demographic? So first off, I would absolutely love for people to weigh in on this topic if they've been seeing like, hey, why is it our audience is more shifted this way when it seems like it should be either more balanced? And that could be a number of different demographics. That could be age, that could be gender, that could be a whole bunch of different things. So if you have some insights on your music, I would absolutely love to hear it. And call our listener line at 360-524-2209 or email us at podcast@cdbabypodcast.com. I did go listen to Reality Suites music, and they actually have a couple tracks that have a lot of streams. It's my first take was, if I didn't know anything about it, I would have assumed that their music probably has more of a male audience, just based on its more aggressive rock. That tends to be how that plays out. But I think where I would start is looking at the data that you have on all the platforms. If you've got a website where you have data as well, where are people coming from? Is there anything that you can glean from that information that might help you understand why you're tapping into certain audiences more than others? On certain platforms, I've noticed with our demographics for Small Town Poets, some platforms it's 50-50. Some platforms it's 60-40 in one direction, some it's 60-40 in the other direction. It's very boggles my mind at times. Mm-hmm. So you might find that where people listen also matters, and that maybe you need to engage with different platforms. That to me, looking at the data is my initial thought. But Chris, what are your thoughts?
Oh, besides it's ladies' night.
Yes.
Ladies get in for free. So yeah, it is an interesting position to be in, an interesting question to ask, because on the one hand, you don't want to slow what's working. So if there's some just inherent gender bias towards hard rock with like female fronted thing, then don't shoot yourself in the foot. But I would put some effort into expanding your audience, as you're suggesting. So advertising can be a way to do it. It is often more expensive to target your ads towards like just female audiences. It might be worth doing though for 3 months or so and see what happens. See if you do it in a local way. I guess that's my other question. Are they primarily concerned with getting people to shows, or do they just in general want to expand
I think that the sentiment I'm picking up in his question and are they here for the right reasons? Is it this way for the right reasons? Is this just how it is with this style of music, or is it trending that way for maybe the wrong reasons, and making sure that they're not doing anything that lean into that? That's what sort of I was gathering from the question. I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth.
No, but that's how I read it too, which is like that unfortunate double standard thing, because plenty of people love male musicians who are great musicians, but are also easy on, it's like the fact that they're an attractive, charismatic performer who also makes good music. It's like, oh, would they love that male artist if they, look like your typical 70s singer-songwriter? The 70s were a golden age.
They were a golden age.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. I would love to get feedback on this one from anyone out there that has a thought or opinion that have ever wondered about the demographics of their audience. What are you seeing? Have you attempted to reach out to a demographic that you seem to be missing? Do you feel like it's not worth it? I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious what other artists are experiencing. Yeah. I don't know. To me, looking at the data and advertising, I've never, with all the advertising I've never done any sort of gender specific advertising because, like you mentioned, Chris, you typically start spending more. What you typically are doing at that level, at the budgets that most of us are working with, is letting the platform optimize for the right people that are actually going to take action. And yeah, so it's a challenge because if there is a group that tends to click first or be more active, you might be missing people that like the music just as much, but they don't click as fast, or for whatever reason. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. So yeah, if you've got thoughts or comments about that, please weigh in. I'd love to hear what other artists are experiencing. And if you're thinking about that, or if you haven't looked in the data, all this data is available on all the platforms. Like Spotify for Artists will break it all down for you. If you've got analytics on your website, typically they will break it down for you, depending on what service you're using. And it is interesting to look at and see who your audience is and wonder, why is that?
Yeah.
All right. We've got one more email. Here we go. Hey, Kevin, Chris, love the podcast. And I was also in Austin, Texas at the conference. Had a blast. Quick question. I don't really need the money to press vinyl for my upcoming release, but what are your thoughts on using Kickstarter or similar as a way to boost pre-sales? I'm releasing in January, February 2023, so I have time, just not sure how people feel about crowdfunding. I don't want people to think I need the money to do the project. I want them to be super excited to buy it early. Thanks in advance. Really appreciate the feedback. Onward and upward, Zach.
I think Zach may have answered the question because my take is, don't present it as a crowdfunding thing. Present it as a pre-sale. And you can oftentimes use the exact same platform. It's just how you tweak the message. So it's not contingent upon reaching a certain goal so much as it's like, I'm just offering it for pre-sale. Pay me now.
Yeah, the way that you might position it is, this is a pre-sale, and when we sell this amount, we're printing it. So it kind of has that urgency for people to buy, but still feels like a pre-sale. I have not seen many crowdfunding campaigns in the traditional sense floating around out there much anymore. I think that doesn't mean they don't exist or isn't a good strategy. But I think a lot of people tried the big, huge, here's all these rewards and all these tiers and things. I think the better strategy that with the tools that are out there now is to be very specific about, hey, we're selling this, or I'm making an album. You can buy in early and help make it a reality. And ditch all the, for $1,000, you'll get this for $2,000 and these big, long, pitch videos. Yeah.
So I agree in general. I haven't seen much of it, and I tend to tune it out when I do see Kickstarter stuff. But I'll do a little shout out to my friend Alice Howe, who recently did a Kickstarter asking for $35,000 and got $50,000. So there's still success happening out there for Kickstarter campaigns.
Mine normally go asking for 10 and getting 2. Oh man,
I ask for 2,000 and I get 2,001.
Yeah. That's to me it's sort of a mystery because the last one we did, we were asking for 10 and we got about that, but it took a lot to get there. And what was weird is there was a band from our same, the era that we came out of, and they were on a label, but they didn't sell as many albums as us. They went and did one asking for like 20 and got like 120,000. Like, so we were like, oh crap, maybe we'll see something similar happen. Nope.
Well, you just didn't want it hard enough. That's what it was.
I wanted it. So to me, I think, I would love to see, when was that campaign, Chris, that you said your friend Alice did?
It ended like maybe a month ago. It was recent.
I'd love to see how she formatted it and all that. Because the thing that kind of soured me on Kickstarter campaigns in the traditional sense is when they offer all these tiers of rewards. And I bought in one for an artist. I bought in one for a startup. And in both cases, it was over a year before I got whatever. And it just felt like, I don't know. I just wanted to support their music or their effort, but just make it easier. Simplify it. That'd be my make it easy on yourself, so you're not having to stress about filling all these random reward levels, and you get to make the music that you want to make. So that's my take.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for the emails and the call. If you'd like to weigh in on a topic or ask a question, you can do so. You can call our listener line at 360-524-2209, or you can email us at podcast@cdbabypodcast.com. And there you have it.
I was just going to mention pretty soon, maybe the next episode will be a bonus episode, which we're going to start sending down the feed for, the next couple months through the holiday season. We'll still be doing these weekly episodes like we do, but we'll also have some of the really good sessions from our conference this summer that will have video components, and we'll put them down the audio feed as well.
Yeah, there's lots of great stuff from the conference that we really haven't shared yet. We were letting everybody who paid to go to the conference get access to it, enjoy it, and then we're going to start sending it down the feed.
Yeah. All right.
Right.
Well, enjoy your gloomy, miserable, spooky day.
Yeah. November is my least favorite month of the year, just in case anyone's wondering. That in February.
It's March for me, because in Maine, it should be spring, but it's still winter.
Interesting. But see, in March, by that time, I have hope.
Hope doesn't begin until April for me.
All right. Well, I guess it's good weather to go write music, though. That's
True.
for sure.
You'll get lots of inspired guitar solos.
Yeah. Yep. So there we have it. All right. Well, we will catch you next time.
See you soon.